Okay, another thing that's interesting is that I saw that a lot of people here raised their hands when we mentioned iPhone users, so I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the idea that you can take a bookmark from a web page and put it onto your springboard, onto the home screen. So it's definitely essential that every WordPress installation has a nice customized icon that looks crisp and clear, that when a user is to bookmark on their mobile device, that they don't get some generic icon. You want it to be in the native resolution, which I believe for the previous iPhones was 57 by 57 pixels, and then the new one is, do you remember? What is it? I think it's like 179 or something like that. Someone correct me if you know. Either way, so it's bigger than the little one that Firefox shows up in the upper corner. So it's definitely essential that you have this on your WordPress installation. Okay, so now after you have installed whatever plugin or whatever theme that you want to use, or you've done it manually, it's very important to verify your mobile site. So let's go over some different options that you have to verify your site. Okay, so Firefox offers a plugin called User Agent Switcher, which supports the iPhone. So if you want to see what your site will render approximately like via Firefox, so you might want to get this agent switcher. So it seems everybody else also has the same idea. In Safari, for Mac users out there, if you click on Safari and then Preferences, you can turn on the developer tools. And in the developer tools, they have a nice browser right in there for mobile Safari. So you can see exactly what it will look like, or more or less what it's going to look like when it's being rendered via mobile Safari. Chrome also has an extension called Ripple, which is a more general mobile environment emulator. It's still in its beta phase, but it's constantly being worked on, and so soon enough we'll see.
With Safari, one of the options is Other. There's a Wikipedia page that has a list of all the user agents. So you can just pop in, if you're developing in Safari, you don't have to switch to another browser.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, thank you. That's a real URL.
Yeah.
That's not a joke. I mean, we just copied and pasted it. Wow. So yeah, if you want to take a minute to right? Yeah, they did. Yeah, it wasn't an SEO guy. Okay, so then also anybody who's using a Mac out there, on the Snow Leopard disk is the developer tools. You can just install them, and alongside with Xcode, you're going to get the iPhone simulator. The iPhone simulator is a great way not only to test out your site, but to take beautiful screenshots. I found that there are options online that kind of frame your website in an iPhone or various other things. But if you really want to see what it's going to actually look like from your desktop, this is the way to go. On my note here, it says the iPhone simulator in Xcode is cool. So okay, we also have Opera. Not to be left out, Opera released the Opera mobile emulator, which does exactly what you would expect it to do. It emulates the Opera mobile browser, and it supports both Mac and PC. So everybody should be able to download it. And I would assume anybody who's using Linux has a virtual machine with XP on it. So everybody should be able to get that up and running. So now, once you've checked that it looks nice, it's always important to run a validation. So W3C has their nice W3C mobile OK checker, and I'm sure you're familiar with how to validate a regular web page. It's no different with a mobile web page. You just put in the URL. You can do your whole site. You can do specific sites. You can do your CSS style sheets. It's a useful tool.
Can I say something? I'm from the W3C. This validator is based on on a document called Mobile Web Best Practices. Since then, they released another version of that extension of that document, and one that is not a standard yet. It's called Mobile Web Application Best Practices. So the application best practices is not validated here, And the validation you get here is based on the recommendation in the documents, the first one. So it's worth, I wanted to say that it's a good idea to read one of them or both of them if you want to make your site repeatable for mobile.
Could I get that URL after this?
Sure, yeah. It's just mobile web best practices, you write it, and mobile web applications best practices. It's two different documents.
Excellent. Okay, so now something a little bit off track, but I think that is important to mention in this lecture is a piece of software called PhoneGap. So now you may find that so now after you've tried all of your conversion to a mobile environment, you might say to yourself, you know what? I really am not accomplishing my goal here. I really am not reaching my users the way that I want to reach them, and I really would like something more robust and more native for a mobile environment, but I don't have a lot of money to spend, and I'm not an awesome programmer. So what do I do? So if you are familiar with JavaScript and CSS and HTML, you have all of the tools to be able to make a web app that is going to be cross-platform, just out of the box, for all of the popular mobile platforms that exist today, all of the hardware. Pretty much anything that you are serious about supporting, the PhoneGap is going to support. So this PhoneGap could probably be its own 45-minute lecture, so I'm just going to leave it there for you to look up on your own, but it's a great tool. Okay, now what along the heels of that, if you do decide that you want a native application, because in order to get all of access to all of the APIs and just be able to have a presence on the native stores, just something you should keep in mind that, for example, the iTunes App Store has over 250,000 apps, and it's just growing. And they have over 6.5 billion apps have been downloaded in the past year. So a mobile app that's native to an environment that's going to run with all of the features and is going to run at full speed, a lot of times will be the perfect addition to your business model that's currently sitting on top of a WordPress installation. So you shouldn't narrow yourself into only using WordPress. There's a big world out there, and apps are just getting stronger and stronger. So on the tail of the iTunes App Store, we also have the Android market, which is growing by leaps and bounds every day. And a little bit slower, but definitely worth mentioning, is the BlackBerry app world. There's a lot of great stuff that you can do in these app environments that you're just never going to be able to accomplish in a WordPress installation, and you shouldn't limit yourself.
Different things.
Oh, you're right, it is two different things. But there are business models that just can't get everything accomplished with one and not the other. And you'll find that there's a lot of apps that have connected to them a website that is running WordPress. So that's why you're right. It isn't the same thing at all, but it's a big world out there. So to summarize the lecture, you've got to focus on compatibility. All of the stuff that you want to share with your users is compatible with your mobile environment. Okay? Number 2 is that you understand what it is that your users are interested in. Number 3 is that you maintain your branding that you worked so hard to get. Number 4 is that you incorporate new features such as the touch screen and the geolocation. And number 5 is that you check to make sure that it all worked. So thank you for listening to my lecture. I hope that it was informative and interesting. And if anybody has any questions, how are we doing on time?
No, we're good.
Okay, so I don't know if I went through that fast. Yeah, I went through that pretty quickly. So if anybody has any questions, if not, then we can get coffee.